What's up, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of the Hogs Media Podcast. Back, and it's the end of basketball season officially. How do you feel now that the season is finally over?
Yeah, I think, what's been interesting is like players like not being shy about starting to kind of throw not necessarily individual names, but they're starting to throw each other under the bus, in the locker room, Battle and Devo and Brazil and Ellis and Davenport, kind of everyone, when they were asked like what happened this year, like why didn't we get anywhere close to our preseason expectations? And everyone was just kind of like saying things basically to the effect of like too many guys playing for themselves, guys not able to, play for each other, play with chemistry, people not buying in, things like that. Obviously, like there was a report that came out that the team was like mocking the coaches in the hotel in Nashville, that they were just making fun of them, do or die, mocking them. And like I get, I mean, it could be harmless, like
Yeah, I mean,
they're,
a lot of players do that. Everybody mocks their coach eventually, but when you're 16 and 17 and it is do or die, I don't think that's the time to be mocking your coaches,
right.
especially one that's been to two Elite Eight and Sweet 16. Like, I'd shut my mouth if I was our players.
Yeah.
Like, you guys got no room to talk. You're probably the worst Razorback team in 10 years. So I'd shut up.
Yeah.
That stuff makes me mad.
Yeah.
What are you mocking? I mean, if you guys can just go out there and do it, do it. Obviously, we
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. No,
That's
it's true. Um, I think, looking forward, um,
go
if
from here.
yeah, where do we go from here? So we can get to Muss in a second, but let's just assume he stays for a minute. You know what's interesting, and we may have talked about this before, but like when we lost in the Elite Eight to Baylor 3 years ago, I think one of like the big pieces that we were missing was a really strong like 3-4 like forward, like a wing forward that's like physical and big. And so Baylor just, yeah, they had like some great shooters, but I think they just like really got after us at the like big forward and small forward position with like rebounding physicality and things like that. Um, but we had strong, like that year, it was like Jalen Tate, strong point guard. Moses Moody, it's a strong shooting guard. JD Note and Devo Davis were kind of like the,
Smith.
sixth and seventh man. Like they were strong off of the bench. And then, Jalen Williams and Justin Smith are both like really solid, like down low guys, like post, like they're, like tall and they were great down there. But yeah, I was like kind of like, okay, who's like really, kind of rocking that like 3-4 like thing. So what did we do? We went out and in the off season in the transfer portal, we picked up Trey Wade, or Trey Wade, Audis Tony, and Stanley Amude, who are all basically like that one archetype. It's like they can maybe guard the two if we're playing like big ball. They can definitely guard the three. They can definitely guard the four. And on rare occasions, they can maybe even go down and body against a five if we're playing small
Difference.
ball, but
Yeah, the point you're making, I like it. The difference with those guys is that they knew their role. Like Trey Wade knew he wasn't supposed to be a scorer. Like you just said, he was there to guard and hit wide open threes. He would guard the five, like you said, occasionally, guard all those. Amude would guard, and Tony was a defender, hustler, and could score. And they
yeah,
knew that coming in. This year, like you were just talking about a minute ago, it feels like these guys don't get their role and they're just trying to go get buckets for themselves. Like,
yeah,
screw the team, screw the coaches. I'm going to go get mine, and that's all that matters. And
yeah,
that's what happens. You get 16 and 17 or whatever we finished.
yeah, definitely. Um, Yeah, I think yeah, that's definitely the case. And I'll kind of get to like where I think that happened. So we got that, and then we came back the next year, made another Elite Eight run, and we lose to Duke. And what is the reason we lose to Duke? It's because of length. Like they had 2, 3 inches of like height and length advantage over us on every single position. So we couldn't contest shots.
Yeah.
We had a lot of shots contested, and we just like couldn't quite get like length rebounds, and like distance rebounds. And we had
Accurate
hustle, we had
ratings.
grit,
Yeah.
we just didn't have the length against Duke. So in that offseason, what do in the transfer portal? We get 6 transfers. We get a 6'10 Makai Mitchell, a 6'10 Mikal Mitchell. We get a 6'11 or 6'10 Jalen Graham. We get a 6'10 Trevin Brazil. Uh, we bring in, I think we had a lot of freshmen that year, and then Ricky Council. But it's like it was like clearly, I think coach like built his roster around like if we had these guys, we could have beat Duke. And that's true. Like I think if we had Trevin Brazil and Mitchell, one of the Mitchells, and maybe Jalen Graham on that team the year before, we probably beat Duke. And so then we go into last year and we have this team that like everyone talked about our length. And it was like length is not going to be our problem anymore.
Mhm.
So then what happened? We couldn't shoot for crap. We
For a
had
couple
like
of years.
one of the worst outside shooting teams in the history of like all programs. I mean, we were horrible. We were ranked below 200 like most of the year in 3-point percentage. And so guys like, Anthony Black and Ricky Council and even Trevin Brazil, like these guys that like are really great at like driving to the basket and like being physical guards and physical players, like they just couldn't find space, because teams were crowding the middle. And it literally was the case. Like if we just had like 2 amazing 3-point shooters on our team, and like Nick Smith was supposed to be that, but he was injured most of the year, so we never really got to see. And so what do? We go into the portal and like coming into this year, like the clear deficit of why we lost last year was like no 3-point shooting, but we had great defense. We had like good length, good height. Like we played, really good offense. Otherwise, we led the country in foul, like drawing fouls and
Free throw attempts.
attempts and like all of that. So it's like those are all amazing, like great metrics. The shooting. So what do? We go and we get Caleb Battle, Jeremiah Davenport, L. Ellis, Menafield, Mark. Like our entire transfer class was built by guys that were like known for being shooters, known for being scorers. Maybe L. Ellis and Menafield are more, like drive type scorers, but like they definitely like had a shot. And it didn't turn out, especially earlier in the season, like none of them were shooting at the clip that we quite expected, but that's who they are. Like that's their identity, right? Like Battle is a 3-point like shooter, and then like he uses that to get downhill. Jeremiah Davenport, that's all he does is shoot threes. Mark is a jump shooter, like mid range,
Mid
like
range. Yeah.
that can still help spread the court. He also has a good three. Same, so like literally it was like, all right, if we had a couple of these guys on last year's team, maybe we make a Final Four run, which I agree. Like if we had Jeremiah Davenport and maybe Battle or Mark on that team with Anthony Black and Ricky
Ricky
Council,
Council.
these guys, then like, hey, like maybe we go a little bit further. So here we are now. And what has been the problem this year? I would say physicality and toughness.
I think our defense as well. We've given up
Yeah.
so many, and we're a defensive minded team. That's like you just said. We haven't been a shooting team, haven't been like rebounding. Our thing has been free throws and defense. We get to the basket, we draw fouls, knock them down, play
Yeah.
good solid defense. This year, no defense. As the season progressed, we did get better at attacking, but
Yeah.
not to the clip we wanted, and we still didn't have shooting. You
Yeah.
just said we still didn't have.
The question is, does coach overcorrect again? And our roster next year looks like South Carolina's team this year, just like every dude is just like big, like South Carolina is like, look at every position and they're just like 20 pounds heavier than like their counterpart. Like Colin Murray Boyles like had like a 20-pound, 30-pound weight advantage on whoever we put on him. And it was like he tore up Jalen Graham, he tore up Trevin Brazil, he tore up Jeremiah Davenport. Their big guy Gray, the
That
7 foot
dude's
guy.
massive.
He's massive. His body, it's not even like he is tall and lengthy, but it's just you can't budge him, like you can't
And he's the
move.
backup. And then they got Mac, who is a
They got
literal
Mac,
Mac truck.
massive, thick guy. Even their guards, like Cooper, Cooper's a stocky like guard. And so anyway, I'm like curious if next year, if either a coach like overcorrects again, and we just have like a roster just full of like, I guess you could say like full of like Trey Wades, a lot of people are saying we're gonna get more of those like Audis Tony like wing kind of guys, which would be I think the appropriate thing to do. But I'm curious if coach like overcorrects and just gets like really those like thick guys that can like body, and then we like lose on like speed, and then we like lose out on like some of that other stuff. But we'll see. Um, but here's my hope for why we have, again, assuming Musk comes back, sometimes you need to realize what you had to like see what you need. Think about it like dating someone, right? Like
Yeah, I
say,
was gonna say you're sounding like a relationship person now.
dude, we're gonna talk about for a second. So imagine you're like, you're dating someone, like I'm a guy that dates girls, so I'll just assume that. So like I'm dating a girl, and let's say like she's super smart, she's just like really, really studied, she's educated, she just has like, she knows all about politics and culture and life, and like she's just like brilliant, a brilliant thinker. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like we have incredible conversation and it's really deep and interesting, but like we don't really laugh together, there's not really a sense of humor, and so you're like, eventually, the relationship fizzles out, and so then you kind of overcorrect, and the next girl that you date is hilarious, she's the life of the party, she's always cracking jokes, she's not afraid to say a dirty joke, and hang with the guys, and you're just like laughing your head off. But then like anytime you try to talk about something deep, maybe it's like, oh, there's not a lot of vulnerability there, there's not a lot of like connectivity there, and then you like move on, you break up, and then you move on to the next girl, and then like maybe it just like it's awful, it's just horrible, and it's like, yeah, this girl's like super like vulnerable and emotive, and we're like super connected, but like the relationship is like incredibly toxic, it's incredibly horrible. Then you suddenly go like, oh wow, maybe that like really like smart, like interesting intellectual girl that I dated like 2 terms ago, like maybe that actually is what I needed. Maybe that actually is what I want. Maybe that actually does work better for me, because you can't have everything all at once, right? Like in dating or in basketball, right? You can't just have a team full of LeBron James. And so I think Coach Muss over the last like 3 or 4 years, will say, kept kind of like chasing that, like, oh, but I wish we had this. Oh, but I wish we had this. And now that he finally like got that and saw that it was like incredibly toxic, incredibly horrible, we got all the shooters, right? We got guys that came in and said, like, give me the ball, coach. Like, I'm the guy that can score for you. And it was a roster full of that, and it sucked
Yeah,
because they were lacking defense, they were lacking chemistry, they were lacking, hustle plays and effort
being a
plays
good
and
teammate.
being a good teammate and all of that. So my hope is that like now that like coach has finally like fully experienced, like, oh, there wasn't just like that one thing missing that like we can go after. It's like, oh, and we've heard him reference it this year a lot, of like, we're missing an Audis Tony Stanley Moody type guy. Um, that Treyway type guy. So I think he's seen enough to know what really doesn't work, to kind of lean back into something that did work. It didn't work as well as he wanted it to, because we only went to an Elite Eight and not a Final Four or a national championship. But I think he's realizing now, like, oh, building around that same type of roster that got us to an Elite Eight can be the same recipe that maybe gets us to a Final Four or gets us to a championship if it's the right guys.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're right on everything you said. I saw something on Twitter earlier, and it was like, we got last year guys we wanted, not what we needed. It basically just sums up what all you just said. Like
Yeah.
you put it right perfectly. Like we search for dudes like, oh, this he averaged 17 at Temple, boom. Oh, Houston, which Jamal Mark was a bucket. Like he worked out for us. I'm not blaming anything on Jamal Mark.
Right.
So he's gonna battle at the end of the season, but then all these other guys were like, oh, okay, okay. And like we didn't get a lot of winning guys. That was an issue too. I saw a statistic like 70% of the guys we picked up did not have a winning season at the last school they were at. And
Wow.
that's not their fault, but at the same time, it's like, well, we're not finding guys that know how to win. And that's a big thing in the SEC. You got to know how to win. So games like, what was it, Mississippi State on the road, who's going to go win that game for us? We saw against A&M, Mark went and got, and where did he come from? Houston, where all they
Mhm.
do is win.
Yeah.
can we say the same thing for Battle? I mean, I know he dominated, but say we need a last shot. Is he going to be able to lead the guys to go get the win? Because at Temple, they were a 500 team.
Yeah. Well, and again, I don't want to put too much on like one play or one person, but even the end of the Alabama game
Yeah,
is kind of that example of like battle where it's like, hey, you have 17 seconds and it's
yeah.
a tie ball game, and there's like a crazy man all game. People who just like it's like they come from a winning program, they know what I'm going to do in this scenario is drive to the bucket and either make them foul me or I'm going to make a layup.
Yeah.
But instead, he said, I'm going to do a step back 28-foot 3-point shot at the buzzer so that we don't even have time to rebound it.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not a winning play.
It's those
That's a hero play.
glimpses that put
Like
together our season, like those little pieces.
those little things, those little moments, and again, like whatever, that play was what it was. But yeah, I think you're right. And again, like one or two of these guys, right? Like if we had brought in Mark and Battle,
Yeah.
but then brought in like, yeah, like other guys like, you know, uh, Ingram from North Carolina, right? Like that's a guy that's just can like play anywhere on the court. He's physical, like he's tough, he's gritty, like he does a lot for them, so it's like if we'd balanced with that or balanced with, like another Trey Way, it's like because we did need at least like a Caliph Battle and a Tremont Mark on our team. If you look at like the roster that we had last year and what kind of held us back and what we're coming into, but then it's like, okay, get that, but then also get like a Jalen Tate type point guard, like a guy that can break the press, knows how to handle the ball. He wants the ball in his hands because he's a facilitator and he's a fantastic ball handler and takes care of the ball. Like we didn't get that. Like we thought maybe L. Ellis or Menafield could be a point guard, but neither one of them have the ball skills or the composure. Menafield kind of did, but he also like was a little bit too small. Ellis was really
Gonna guard
small.
his soul. I think I could get a
Yeah, like the defense was horrible, like getting lost all the time. So again, like I'm all for like of the six guys that we brought in this year, this past year, like bring in two or three of those still. Like, and they could have
I
worked
mean,
really well if they had other pieces surrounding them. Kind of like JD Note with
yeah,
that team, 3 years ago. Battle could have been like the JD Note if he had all those role players around him.
yeah, going off that, yeah, like you said, with two or three coming back, we have a chance for that. Battle still has, I believe, 2 years of eligibility. Mark has eligibility. So if we could get those two guys back, and then the thing you were talking about is sometimes fans, and I know we all do it, kind of look at, oh, we're looking at a transfer from, say, Texas, but there's one from freaking Kennesaw State. And we say automatically, oh, we need the guy from Texas. But we've seen in years past, maybe that Kennesaw State guy is going to give us more and fits his role perfectly because guys like Amude didn't come from a big school. It's
Mhm.
like South Dakota State.
Yeah.
It's like we need to get guys that fit the mold of what our program is about. And I'm not saying this year's transfers weren't, but every indication of what we've heard says that they weren't really buying in. I mean, if you're mocking your coaches when you got one game left, that doesn't really tell me you've bought into the program and the culture. Culture is
Mhm.
a huge thing in college basketball, and we've seen through all rumors, pretty much everything this year. It's not been a great culture.
Yeah. No, it's true.
I
Yeah. We got a lot of work to do in the portal.
and like you've said, Muss, we have heard rumors. I think everybody's heard it. Nothing like concrete, but everybody not as certain that he comes back as it has been years past. There's a lot more rumors, a lot more that credibility that
Yeah.
he could be gone. And then if that happens, I don't want to buy into possibilities, but if Muss left, oh man, it would be a rough time.
It would be really rough. And I mean, at this point, like, like the big one that everyone's talking about is Louisville, right? I mean, that's the big one. There's been some like sources on the Gary Parrish show. I mean, he's a CBS like, tenured basketball, like pundit, like voice. on Gary Parrish's show on YouTube, he was interviewing a Louisville guy the other day, like one of their like beat writers or like, guys that's kind of in the Louisville area. And they basically were like, yeah, Musselman wants the job. Musselman has like reached out and Louisville is like has him on their short list. And I know Louisville's like going after some like even higher profile names, like Nick Cronin is one of the ones they're going after, but he has like a massive buyout and he might not want to leave. Scott Drew is like on their list, but it's like, I don't know why Scott Drew would leave Baylor right now. Like he just won a national championship like 3 years ago and is continually like a
They're a
perennial
three
team. Like,
three seed.
yeah,
Heck,
like
would he leave Baylor?
yeah, they love him there. They'll pay him anything. Like he has like built and transformed that program. So like that's just like Louisville being cocky, thinking like, well, we could get any coach we want. We could get Calipari if we wanted him. Like, no,
Um,
you were great 20 years ago. You're a trash program now. No, like I
they
was,
were good 10 years ago, but that was
yeah,
Patino.
yeah.
No,
No, I don't
Louisville
want
is
to trash.
not the job it used to be. I agree with you. It is not even close.
Yeah. It's still a good job. But so Louisville, I think, is a really strong possibility that we lose Musselman to Louisville. If Arizona State comes available, obviously if UCLA comes available, I know he would like be really interested in getting those. Now, whether those programs are interested in having him
Hmm.
is, who knows? Um, but what's kind of scary is all of like I would say like Muss is like the best possibly available coach on the market right now.
For sure.
So if he leaves, there's no one, in my opinion, of an like equivalent or higher value that would be available to replace him. Like guys that were being thrown around, like Chris Beard.
Yeah.
Like Chris Beard has had as much success, I would venture to say, over the tenure of his career as Muss in college basketball. He re-upped with Ole Miss. The South Carolina coach. What was I can't remember his name at this moment. But
Lamont Paris.
Lamont Paris. Yeah, like he was a guy that was also like on a short contract. Like didn't have like a huge buyout. Like he would have been easier to snag. He just re-upped. Like I think Nate Oates just re-upped.
Well,
So all
screw Nate Oates. I wouldn't want Nate Oates anyways. I
you
hate.
mocking Arkansas fans.
No, I'm being for real. I do not
You
like
being for
Nate.
real? You don't like Nate Oates?
Oh, he's a jerk. Acts
I
like
mean,
an
I hate
idiot.
him because he's at Alabama, but if he was our coach, I'd like him.
I mean, I would like him, I guess per se, but I don't like him. But yeah, I see what you're saying. All these quality coaches are re-upping. There's no way if we were to lose.
Yeah,
Here's
they're
a
re-upping
question.
and they're getting snagged. So it's like if Musselman waits too much longer, like 3 or 4 more weeks to make a decision, and he decides to leave, like who's left for us to like replace him with? Like we're gonna
Here,
have to like go down to some like D2 school again. Like
I
how we
okay, based off what you're saying, there is a D2 program. Gus, our old assistant coach, is that a possibility, you think? He was a great assistant. He's done solid at the D2 level, and I know that's tough, but like he knows the program, he knows the culture. It'd be
yeah.
easy to plug him in, saying must waits a super long time.
I mean, to me, look, I think Gus is on his way to having a great career, and maybe one day it would be awesome to have him back. But pulling him up after only 1 year of being a head coach at a Division II school is like it's going to be the Sam Pittman show all over again. It's like, oh, here's a guy that like we
Hey,
know who's been an assistant his whole life, and people love him because he's a good dude. But it's like, oh, he's not SEC caliber head coach like caliber.
quit hating on Sam Pittman. Was on the freaking playoff this year. I don't know what you're talking about.
Hey, I hope Sam I with
I hope so.
what's the BMFP Bobby Mother Petrino. That is sad. They'll do fine. But yeah, I mean, I think with again, I'm just worried about like like I like Muss and I want Muss to stay. I don't want Muss to leave. I think Muss is a really good coach. I think he has the record to prove it. this one year was a disappointment, but
Every
like
coach has one bad year.
every coach has one bad. Hubert Davis at North Carolina, his first season went to the national championship and should have won it. They were up by like 15 at half.
Last year, didn't they skip out on the NIT?
They returned pretty much their entire team. They returned 4 out of 5 starters of that national championship run team, and they replaced Brady Manick with Nance
Yeah,
Larry,
Nance. Yeah, Larry
who's
Nance son.
a serviceable wing shooter, and they didn't make the tournament
Yeah,
with Caleb Love, RJ Davis, and Armando Bacot and Leaky Black. Like freaking one of like all of those guys have like been nominated for National Player of the Year, like at some point, or like have won
I
all
mean,
ACC.
and now
Like
look at UNC. They're a 1 seed, and then Love's at Arizona, and they're a 2 seed.
exactly. So if the North Carolina fans had crapped on Hubert Davis last year after not making the tournament,
Yeah,
said, "Oh, we hate this guy. He's not a good coach. He just got lucky last year because he was using Roy Williams roster and like this team that team could have gone to the national champ with any coach, and now we're actually seeing the real Hubert Davis, which is a non NCAA coach." Well, then you wouldn't be sitting here as a 1 seed, winning the ACC regular season title, making it to the championship, and like everyone predicting you to be a Final Four team, and some having an outside chance of winning it all.
yeah.
Arkansas fans, learn from that. Like Musselman went Elite Eight, Sweet 16. Great, you had 1 year. See what he does next year. See what happens. See how he rebuilds this roster. See how he rebuilds this team. And if he gets us back to an Elite Eight or a Final Four, like there you go. Like he's allowed to have that off season. And everyone that's already just like jumping ship is like chill. Anyway, so I hope he stays. What I'm more worried about is like who we would replace him with though.
Yeah.
Like with the transfer portal being what it is, like any coach can come in and rebuild a team and rebuild a roster pretty quick. So like losing Muss wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but then the question is like there's no options that are in the same vicinity of what Muss can do. And like that scares me more, like not what we would lose, but what we would not be able to gain back, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. That covers basketball pretty much as what we know of now. Moving on to baseball, sweep Missouri pretty easily. Were you able to catch any of the games?
I was keeping up with the game cast, like the box score as it went along.
Uh,
Freaking domination.
yeah, I think we gave up 1 run all weekend. I think is what they said, or maybe I know they scored one yesterday. I know Hagan didn't give up any runs. I don't think Brady did. I think they scored 1 run the whole weekend.
Yeah, I'm pulling up
I mean, I know
some of
everybody's been saying it, but I easily think this is the best pitching staff we've ever had. I mean, I watched good chunks of every game, and Hagan, of course, dominated. And then Will McIntyre will come out, give you solid innings. And then Brady Tiger, one of the best Saturday night starters there is, comes out and dominates. And then Molina yesterday, Sunday starter, which is usually like kind of, he's like, they're usually decent, but like they're not your best. Comes out and dominates. Has a no hitter going into the sixth
yeah.
or the fifth. I don't know. He had a no hitter going for a while, and it's just like, oh my gosh, like how if our bats just stay even decent, like they don't need to be top 10 in the nation, but just give us 4 to 5 runs a game. I mean, we're good to go.
Oh yeah. I mean, Hagen Smith, I'm looking at the Hogs media caption on Instagram recently. 17 strikeouts in one game. Almost 9 strikeout games. He only had one game where he gave up 3 runs, but outside of that one game, he has 1 ER and 4 starts. So yeah, like people are saying he could be like he is probably the likely front runner for like Golden Spikes award, like for
If he keeps this up, for sure.
yeah, and being like one of the greatest pitchers like in
Yeah.
Arkansas history. And
And think
then our second day starter is Brady Tiger,
yeah,
who it's like
legend.
there's no drop off there. Like
And then there's
he's
no drop off with Molina. That's the thing. There's no
yeah,
drop off.
dude, it's nutty.
And what are lineups
Um,
supposed to do? You get to face a nasty lefty, then you get Tiger, who's off off speed machine, and then you got to go back to a lefty with Molina. Like, how do you
yep.
prepare for that?
Dude, Molina right now is he's only allowing a 122 batting average.
It's insane.
122. Like freaking so good.
And then we have a bullpen that's solid. I mean, I already said Will Mack, Gackle is solid. What's his name? Frank, solid. And
Yeah,
we
Cody Frank.
I heard Van Horn this yesterday after the game say we don't even have two guys that are solid arms. Like Ben Bybee has yet to pitch, and he pitched in a lot of games last year, just an arm, but like he pitched in quality innings. And then another guy, I think they said is injured and hasn't been playing yet. We got arms on like the most depth I think Van Horn said we've ever had when it comes to pitching.
Hmm.
So it's just
Yeah,
about our bats. If our bats can just stay steady, give us a little bit of run support every game, it's going to be very tough to beat us this year.
yeah,
That's if we stay healthy. You know, injuries get us almost every year. I'm saying that right now as we're fully healthy. If we do catch the injury bug, it might be a little bit difficult, especially if they're pitchers that are getting injured.
yeah, yeah. That would be the only thing that really holds us back from a regional,
Yeah.
and then you know, to get through Omaha, the batting, right? So if we're healthy, we're getting to Omaha. Like it's gonna happen. And then to win in Omaha, we need the batting to just stay good, maybe elevate a little bit more from where it's at. But our pitching is already national championship caliber pitching.
That's the thing. When we made those World Series runs, we weren't scoring 10 to 15 runs a game. We did against Oklahoma State in the regionals. Those were insane games. We'll probably never see again. But we would get 5 runs, 5 to 8 runs. And that's all you need. Like, we're not asking them to average 9 runs a game or get 10 plus. 5 to 7 should be good enough this year.
Yeah,
Keep us in every game and give us a solid chance to win.
yeah. Which is, I mean, seeing how we did against Mizzou, which I know Mizzou's not
No, they're
um,
terrible, like they are in every sport.
like they are. Screw Mizzou. I know it's not saying a ton, but I mean, putting up 9 against them yesterday, putting up what was it, 8 the day before, 6 the day before, 6-0, and then let's see
Yeah,
where is
you know, I
it? Yeah, I mean, it's like those are good numbers. Like,
no, our bats are waking up for sure. And the thing was, I think it was Saturday, maybe yesterday. I don't know. Um, it's 0-0, game going in the sixth, and then we come out that bottom of the inning, back to back jacks, and it's just like our offense this year can explode,
mm-hmm,
and then that's all we'll need for the whole game.
yeah,
So I hope it's consistent throughout the game, but if we get explosions, and the thing is, being the top ranked team, you would think our guys are just we have some of the most patient hitters. Like
yeah,
they're just not swinging. I mean, they're taking pitches. I mean, it's awesome to see. And then the crowds are insane.
mm-hmm.
While we got 3 minutes, you want to talk a little bit about spring football for Arkansas?
um, I mean, I think I think Arkansas Nation is already starting to get overhyped.
I agree.
Get overhyped on this team. I mean, uh I mean, I've watched some of the practices. It's for me, it's hard to like get that excited because it's like they're running
Yeah,
drills, they're running scrimmages. Like, of course, our receivers can run precision routes when they're not wearing pads and they're just like doing cuts against non-defenders. And of course, our quarterback, you would hope if he made it to D1 college, he can deliver a strike in 7-on-7, like defenseless, like
this is
pass.
the SEC. I would hope so.
Yeah. But I will say, like, I think it's looking pretty confident that Taylor Green is going to be the starting QB.
That's all I've heard. I haven't heard
Yeah.
anything about anybody even challenging him. And this is big news. I saw earlier this week that the strings were him first, Singleton second, then Criswell third string.
Mm,
So that was interesting to see. I mean, if he stays behind Singleton, there's no way Criswell stays. If he's not even
right.
getting a chance at the starting spot, I could see him leaving for sure.
Mm, yeah.
And it's like, what happened? Like, has he been performing that bad? Like, I know Talon's a transfer, but he's not good enough just to be like, all right, here you go. Here's the keys. Like, there was supposed to be a competition. It sounds like, I mean, the linemen are posting videos with their quarterback and joking around. It's like, what happened? It's been 2 weeks.
Either either Green's that good or the other guys are performing that bad.
That's
I
my
think
thing.
system, I think Chriswell was like a similar archetype to like KJ Jefferson and I guess worked in that system. I mean, I don't know if you can say it worked when we lost when we went 5 for 8 or whatever. Um but I just think that it's like Bobby Petrino needs a different type of quarterback than what Chris Fuel can offer and what he can be.
I would agree with that. I think, I mean, and it's early to tell it's March. You can't tell anything. New system, new offensive coordinator, new everything pretty much.
Mhm.
But that's a big time thing happening so far.
Yeah.
Any other things you've seen that you want to highlight before we get
Our
off?
track and field coach won Coach of the Year
Heck
for
yeah.
track and field. So congrats. It's amazing.
Saw this morning gymnastics got their most regular season wins ever. So shout out to gymnastics. 8 regular season wins. The third most ever, highest in like 10 years. So shout out to them. Softball won a series against Auburn. I think that's, yeah, track and field dominated coach of the year. I think that's it. Women's basketball got invited to the NIT. Scott is transferring. It's a big loss for them. Huge
Yeah,
loss.
that is unfortunate.
Other than that, I think